Thank you, Secretary Mayorkas, for being here today and for your service to our country, first as a U.S. Attorney and now as Secretary of Homeland Security. You know, we all know that Congress has not acted in many, many years to update our immigration laws. In fact, it's been really, if you want to take a look at it, we're still operating under the outlines of the 1965 Act, which no wonder it doesn't work that well for the United States of America in 2023. So I'd like to ask first, do you agree that it would be better to have a legal framework wherein people could actually enter the United States with visas and the like, and instead of a mishmash of asylum claims and the like at the border?
Congresswoman, I do. I see other countries with systems that are more advanced than ours that actually can match the need for labor with the supply for labor. And in fact, Canada is one of those countries immediately to the north.
I would just note that the Canadian government has now opened up an official government effort to poach the most educated and the most talented postdocs and doctors in the technology field in Silicon Valley. 10,000 of the best and the brightest applied on the first day. So that is a loss to our country. I'd just like to note that we have a bill, it's a bipartisan bill called the Farm Workforce Modernization Act that would streamline the H-2A program and regularize the status as an agricultural worker visa for farm workers, half of whom are here without their papers. Do you think that would help regularize our situation at the border?
I do, Congresswoman. There are approximately, I believe, 10 million open jobs in need of workers. I hear from executives across this country about the need for labor, and it is proven that lawful labor pathways cause a reduction in the number of irregular arrivals at our border.
I'd just like to touch again, the ranking member has mentioned the use of parole. It's one of the few tools that you have under the existing Immigration and Nationality Act, and I note that it's been used by presidents of both parties over many, many years. President Eisenhower oversaw parole of over 30,000 Hungarian refugees escaping communism. President Ford and President Carter oversaw the parole of hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese fleeing the communists. We have used parole for people fleeing communism in Cuba and fleeing communism in Nicaragua and now fleeing communism in Venezuela. Would you say that the use of parole today by category, but then case by case, is any different what prior administrations have done?
Congresswoman, we have used our parole authority consistent with the law and consistent with past practices of different administrations.
I'd just like to note that, the idea that we should cut off this way to rescue people who are trying to escape from communism today is completely wrong. And contrary to our history as a country, we have always welcomed those who are fleeing from communist oppression going back many decades, and I will strongly object if we turn our back on those refugees from communism today. That would be very wrong. I just want to talk briefly about the refugee process. As we know, in the last administration, basically the refugee program was destroyed. How are we doing in rebuilding the refugee processing, as well as the processing centers in the U.S. and the nonprofits who are helping refugees come into the United States? Can you tell us how we're rebuilding the refugee process?
Congresswoman, we, under the President's leadership, have recommitted ourselves to the refugee process. It is a process that benefited my family in fleeing the communist takeover of Cuba. It is what drove me, quite frankly, to public service, the opportunities that this country provided for my parents, my sister, and me.
I yield back, Mr. Chair. My time's expired.
Gentleman yields back.